Raleigh doesn't hide its heat. It sits on your collarbones and lets you make of it what you will. That night in June, the air felt like damp velvet when I stepped out of the rideshare and into the parking lot of the business hotel off Six Forks. My phone was a flat pane of excuses in my palm, 3 missed calls from Lila, one from a number I didn't recognize, and a text from our sitter about our son's math packet. I told the driver to keep the car idling. He shrugged like, "Your money." I didn't run through the lobby. I didn't storm. I walked. I nodded at the night clerk, who was too young to have developed a conscience about keys and men with a look in their eyes. I knew the room number because Lila had left the confirmation open on the kitchen counter that morning. It wasn't brilliant detective work, it was carelessness, or something worse. I knocked. I didn't bang. The door opened 6 seconds later. She was in a hotel robe. He was in a shirt with his agency's logo, half-buttoned and failing. Arthur, her boss. My wife said my name like a prayer and a curse. I held up my hand. "I'm not here to make a scene," I said. "Get dressed. We need to talk." I stood in the hallway while doors breathed around me. They came out separately. No one said sorry, not yet. Arthur took the stairs like a man who enjoys the process of walking away. Lila stared at the carpet pattern and then at my face and then at the space just past my shoulder where a different story lived. In the parking lot, we didn't fight. The driver washed in his rear view and pretended not to. Lila wiped at tears that weren't finished forming. "I screwed up," she said. "I got lost. I know you want to end this, but please, Nate, don't decide tonight. I need one chance. Give me a way back." There are men who would have left her there. There are men who would have performed a speech for the cameras no one had set up. I am not those men. I am a systems administrator. My work runs on contingencies and documentation and graceful rollbacks. Maybe it's pathetic to take your marriage to the same place you take your network. Maybe it's the only thing I know that works. "Get in the car," I said. "We aren't deciding anything tonight. We are going to build an experiment with clear criteria and a clock." She blinked like I'd just offered her a probation officer. In a way, I had. We drove home down roads I could pilot half asleep. Our house on a cul-de-sac near Lake Lynn looked the way it always did, tidy, practical, waiting. Inside, the sitter had lined up puzzle pieces on the coffee table. Our daughter's stuffed rabbit lay on the rug like evidence of a gentle crime. I paid the sitter and walked her to her car, made a joke about bedtime raids, kept my voice normal. When the door clicked shut, the house went quiet in a way that hurt. "We can't talk now," I said. "The kids are asleep. Tomorrow, after drop-off, you can sleep in the guest room." She moved to touch my arm and then didn't. "Thank you," she said. "You won't regret this." "It's not gratitude I want," I said. "It's clarity." That night, I lay awake on my back and listened to the AC scroll through its cycles. Marriage has sounds you stop hearing. Infidelity turns them back up. The next morning, we did the same dance every family does. Breakfast, backpacks, locating a shoe that had migrated under a couch. Lila kissed our daughter's hair and our son's forehead with an ache I didn't recognize. At 8:30, we sat at the kitchen table with coffee we didn't drink and phones we didn't touch. I had a yellow legal pad and a pen. I had slept 3 hours and one of them had been an argument with no words. "If there's going to be any path forward," I said, "it will be written down, it will be specific, and it will be time-boxed. 90 days. 90, she repeated, like taste testing a number. "What happens in 90? "We decide. Not with vibes, with evidence. You want a chance. This is the only version I can live with." She nodded fast, like eagerness could beat truth. "What are the rules?" "Section 90, I said, because I needed a title, because naming a thing makes it less slippery. Rule 1, zero contact with Arthur or any personal communication with him outside documented work transitions. That means no texts, no calls, no DMs, no likes, no emoji, no smoke signals. You will inform HR today that you are removing yourself from his reporting line indefinitely. If that can't be done, you resign. This is non-negotiable." Her eyes flashed fear and pride, and then something like calculation. "HR won't love that," she said, "but I can ask for a lateral move. It'll be messy." "It can be messy," I said. "It can't be secret. Rule 2, full transparency. Shared read-only access to your personal and work email. Shared access to your phone location and calendar. Shared view on financial accounts, including any old cards you use for work dinners that aren't reimbursed. I don't care to read your book club emails. I do care to know if you say you're in therapy and your location shows martinis." That's... She looked up at the ceiling as if privacy lived there. That's invasive. I'm invasive, I said, for 90 days. Then we go back to boundaries, whatever we choose. Rule 3, individual therapy for you weekly, couples therapy weekly, a couples workbook we both do, no skipping. Rule 4, a co-parenting calendar and writing, school events, pickups, drop-offs, who makes dinner, who handles bedtime, no improvising and then resenting. Rule 5, all of the above is written, signed, and acknowledged with the mediator we used for our wills. She will hold a copy. Rule 6, if any rule is broken, the experiment ends. Not a conversation, not a fight. An end. She was quiet long enough for the fridge to hum and stop. What do you give up? She asked quietly, and it wasn't accusatory. What's your risk? I give up the performance of certainty, I said. I give up a clean cut. I give up telling everyone a story they'll clap for. I sit in this house with you for 90 days and I try to do the part of marriage that looks like chores. I will not punish you. I will write the truth down and look at it. She cried then, not pretty, and I didn't move to comfort her because it would have made me a liar. When she was done, she wiped her face with the heel of her hand like a teenager. Okay, she said, I'll sign. I'll talk to HR. I'll give you access. I'll do therapy. I'll do all of it. She took a breath that looked like surrender. I don't want to lose our kids a second at a time. We're not bargaining the kids, I said. We're building a schedule for them that survives whatever we end up doing. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, Section 90 existed in a PDF and a folder on my desktop. Our mediator, a woman named Tony who makes conflict feel like a project, had reviewed it, cleaned up the language, and added signature lines with dates. Lila signed with a blue pen, deliberate and careful. I signed with a hand that didn't shake. Tony scanned it to her records. It was painfully unromantic. It felt like relief. The first week tasted like raw hope. Lila moved desks to a different floor. She sent an email to HR citing reporting line concerns and attached a bland paragraph that said nothing and meant everything. She shared her calendars. She invited me to the patient portal for her therapist so I could see appointments attended, but not content. We sat at the dining room table on Wednesdays with a workbook about rebuilding trust, and we did the exercises like people who want a grade. We built the co-parenting calendar on a shared Google Doc and made our son's math packet and our daughter's soccer practice the spine of our days. On day 9, I noticed something. It was small. The kind of small that people call nothing because they want it to be. At 1:20 in the morning, Lila's name showed up in the liked by list under a photo of Arthur's whiskey glass on his private Instagram. I saw it because I couldn't sleep and because I had no kindness left for the idea that one tiny click is just a tiny click. In the morning, I made coffee and sat with it. If Section 90 meant anything, it meant learning to hold a fact without throwing it like a plate. I took a screenshot. I added it to a folder in my drive called S90 Observations. I labeled the file with the date and time in a sentence, like on Arthur post 1:20 a.m. I did not mention it to Lila at breakfast. I buttered toast. I packed lunches. I put a check next to library books due on the calendar and went to work. Work was blessedly boring. Servers don't care about your heart, they care about tasks. I pushed an update to a set of machines that would have been bricked by a silent vendor bug if we hadn't caught it. I documented. I answered 3 tickets. I toggled my brain between logic and quiet. At noon, I walked in the heat with a coworker and talked about the hurricanes last season, the unfairness of salary caps, and the price of blueberries. My body remembered normal. Week 2, Lila came home from therapy with cheeks that looked scrubbed from the inside. My therapist wants me to build a no-contact letter to Arthur, she said, tentative. Do you want to read it or not? I want you to send it, I said, and I want a delivery receipt to HR. She did. The letter was all the things letters like that are. I am focusing on my marriage. I am stepping back. Do not contact me outside work channels. Please respect my boundary. It wasn't poetry. It didn't need to be. HR replied with a cartoon level of blandness and a link to a fraternization policy that might as well have been titled, "Stop trying to date people who pay you." I didn't cheer. I added the letter and receipt to the Section 90 folder under Steps Taken. I cooked spaghetti. I did the workbook exercise about repair conversations and wrote, in black ink that didn't smudge, my anger is an attempt to control a past I can't edit. When you wrap your life in rules, people think you're building a cage. I wasn't. I was building a hallway with lights that came on when you walked. Our kids didn't need the word experiment. They needed to see that bedtime still happens at 8:30 and pancakes still happen on Saturdays, and that we are both at the back to school night because this is their school, not our fight. Day 20, Lila left her phone on the counter while she went to switch laundry. It buzzed with a notification from the agency Slack someone posted in Wins about a pitch. I glanced because you can't untrain a sysadmin to be aware of their environment. A few lines down, I saw a DM preview from Arthur. Congrats to your team. Proud of you. No hearts. No kiss emoji. But the message existed. Section 90 didn't ban work compliments. It banned personal communication and off-channel chatter. This was in the corporate system. It was exactly what it looked like. I let it go. You have to choose your cliffs. Day 25. We walked into couples therapy after a fight about who forgot the lunchbox and walked out with assignments about rituals of connection. We set a timer for 15 minutes after the kids went to bed and asked each other 3 questions from a stack our therapist handed us. What scared you today? What made you laugh today? What did you avoid today? Lila answered with honesty that felt borrowed from a braver woman. I did the same. There were nights we fell asleep mid-sentence in our separate rooms like exhausted classmates. Day 30, we were at my sister's for barbecue. Lila laughed at my brother-in-law's story about an exploding smoker and then went quiet in a way that made my sister watch her with the eyes people use when they're trying to measure without a ruler. On the drive home, Lila turned down the radio and said, "I don't know if I'm a good person." "You're a person," I said. "That's harder." On day 34, at 1:20 in the morning, Lila liked another photo. This time, it was Arthur's dog asleep on a leather couch. Same time, same habit. I took a screenshot. I added it to the folder. I didn't mention it over breakfast or in therapy. She didn't bring it up either. Denial is a genius. It can move furniture while you sleep. By day 40, the co-parenting calendar had become muscle memory. I knew when I was on mornings and when she was on afternoons and when I had to be at the dentist with our daughter. Our son asked if we were fighting. I said we were doing work. He asked if that was worse. I said sometimes it feels worse and is better. 3 days later, a bill hit our joint visa from a florist near North Hills. Not an insane amount, $86 and change. The kind of spend that comes with euphemisms like client gifts. It wasn't reimbursed a week later. I moved the PDF to the Section 90 drive and labeled it Spend Non-Reimbursed Flowers. We did laundry. We took our daughter to the lake to see turtles. We were gentle and ordinary. I slept a little more. On day 49, I saw Lila on our back deck printing the no-contact letter again. She folded it, unfolded it, smoothed it with her palm. "What's that?" I asked. "Something to remind myself who I said I was," she said, and then smiled at the paper like it might forgive her. Day 52. Our therapist told us to write down what trust would look like at day 90 if it were healing. I wrote, less quiet, same calendar, no more folders. Day 58. The babysitter canceled and we adjusted with the kind of grace that feels like manual labor. Lila took the kids to a playground and sent me a picture of our daughter hanging upside down like a bat. I felt something stir that wasn't rage. The word for it might be mercy. The word for it might also be foolishness. You don't get a user manual for these moments. You just don't slam the door while they're trying to enter. Day 60 was a Wednesday. Lila had individual therapy at 5. I had a ticket backlog and a vendor call. We ate a fast dinner at 4:30, switched off dishes like runners passing a baton, and she grabbed her keys. "I'll be back by 6:30, she said. "Do you want anything from the store?" It was so normal I almost believed it. At 6:40, her location tile still sat in Midtown. At 6:50, it moved south toward a neighborhood where our cars don't go much. At 7:02, it stopped 3 blocks from Arthur's condo. There are 100 reasons to be in a part of town you don't usually visit. There are fewer after therapy when you said you were coming home. I sat on the couch and watched the blue dot be a blue dot. Our kids were in the living room building a city out of magnet tiles. The AC kicked on like a metronome. My hands were steady and my knees were not. At 7:31, I opened the Section 90 document on my laptop and scrolled to Rule 1. Zero contact. No contact includes social media interaction. No contact includes physical proximity outside unavoidable work events. I didn't need to leave the house. I didn't need to drive and look and perform a heartbreak. I needed to record the thing as the thing it was. At 7:40, I took a screenshot of the location. At 7:48, the blue dot moved north. At 8:03, the garage clicked open. Lila came in with no bags and eyes that wanted to be anywhere else. "Therapy ran over," she said. "We went long." How was your store run? I asked. What? You asked if I needed anything from the store. I kept my voice in the lane you use with servers, both kinds. She nodded too fast. Right, I forgot. I'm sorry. Do you want me to go now? Did you see Arthur? I asked. She hesitated, and in the space of that pause, you could hear the floor joists of our life make a sound that wasn't exactly breaking. He texted me about a client brief. I told him I could talk for 5 minutes, she said. She waved a hand at the idea of we just talked. You broke the rule, I said. It was 5 minutes. Her voice was small and sharp. Nate, come on, don't! No, I said. We wrote this down for exactly this moment so we wouldn't have to argue about definitions. Section 90 ends when a rule is broken. It ends now. She cried then in the old way, the way that had worked on me for 10 years, the way that makes men write checks and women forgive themselves. I didn't tell her to stop. I didn't tell her anything. I opened my email and wrote to Tony, our mediator. The subject line said, as calmly as I could make it, Section 90, conclusion. In the body, I wrote, Lila violated Rule 1. I am invoking the termination clause. Please begin the co-parenting schedule and property division mediation as discussed in Section 5. Attached, screenshots of location data for documentation. Thank you. We move like professionals. It's a terrible thing to be good at divorcing someone you once loved. It's also a mercy, I think, to keep your promises when you want to break everything. I told Lila she could stay in the guest room until we had a plan for the house. I told her I would not discuss the rules. I told her she could talk to the kids with me on Saturday and that until then, we would keep our schedules normal. She said I was cruel. I said I was consistent. There's a difference. Tony scheduled us for mediation the following week. Her office has a plant that looks fake and is real, and a round table that makes you feel like things can happen without corners. She started where she always starts, the children. She pulled out the co-parenting calendar we had already built under Section 90 and said, "It's funny how much of a divorce goes better when people do this part first." We agreed on 50-50 week on week off with a midweek dinner for the off parent. We agreed on school pickups and summer camps and FaceTime at 7 for the other parent. We picked a counselor for the kids, a woman named Janelle, who has a way of talking about big feelings like they're puzzles with missing pieces that you can find under the couch. When the calendar was set, Tony turned to the house. We were lucky we had equity and not a ton of debt. Lila wanted to keep the house. I wanted to move. I loved that house, but I wanted a place where the kitchen doesn't hold the sound of that Wednesday. We got an appraisal. We ran a spreadsheet. We came up with a number and a timeline. She would refinance in 90 days. I would rent an apartment in North Raleigh with a second bedroom so the kids' bunk beds could come and a space for my server rack so I didn't turn the living room into a data center. There were questions that would have burned us both 6 months earlier. Alimony, retirement splits, the Honda. Section 90 had given us a discipline we didn't deserve. We answered questions like coworkers dividing a project, you take that task, I'll take this. It felt transactional. It also felt humane. When Lila pushed on money, Tony raised an eyebrow and asked her to pull up the agency's fraternization policy. It says what they all say. If you get caught sleeping with your supervisor, don't expect the company to spend much time making your life easy. I'm not a vengeful man. I didn't ask for punishment. I asked for predictable. The only time voices rose was when Lila said, "Please, just one more chance. This time I'll do it right. We were making progress, Nate. You know we were." "We were making habits," I said. "Progress needs truth. You asked me for a chance. I gave us a process. We both signed. I didn't give you a second life. I gave myself a first boundary." "You love rules more than you ever loved me," she said, her lip curled in a way that used to make me buy flowers and apologize for weather. "You always have." "I love not lying," I said. "Kissing a non-disclosure agreement doesn't make it romantic. Love doesn't survive NDAs with lies." The sentence surprised me as it came out. It had been growing in me since the hotel door opened. She flinched because the line was neat and true. Tony kept us moving. She is the kind of woman who could steer a ship through a hallway. At the end, she read back the agreements like vows undone, co-parenting schedule, property distribution, a clause about introducing new partners only after a 6-month psychosocial period, and a heads-up conversation because our kids are not experiments. We signed. My hand didn't shake then either. We told the kids together that Saturday. We used phrases Janelle had written down for us about homes instead of broken families, about calendars instead of losses. Our daughter asked if Binky the rabbit could go back and forth. He could. Our son asked if Christmas would be weird. I said it might be different, and that different isn't always bad. After, we made pancakes because food is a ritual, and rituals hold a house up when the beams are shifting. Life after Section 90 was smaller and cleaner. I moved into the apartment and discovered the joy of walls without history. I bought a cheap patio set and sat outside at night and listened to other people's televisions. I hung the kids' art on the fridge with magnets that looked like emojis because why not? I learned where the sun hits at 6 and where to park to avoid the sap under the maples. The first week alone, I had the urge to call Lila 10 times and ask if she remembered the IKEA bookcase we built in year 2, the way one dowel didn't fit and we pretended it was a metaphor and then forgot what for. I didn't call. I wrote those memories down in a small notebook and closed it. When the kids asked for an old story, I told them the one about the time Daddy left his phone on the roof of the car and it rode for 4 miles to school and survived, and we all agreed that sometimes things hang on you don't expect to. Work didn't change because the servers didn't care about my personal life before, and they still didn't. I got better at closing tickets during my week off, kid, because the house was quiet. I took on a project migrating a creaky asset management system to a new platform and documented the hell out of it. My boss called me reliable in a meeting. I let myself feel good. Lila thrived in public and struggled in private. She posted a photo of a charcuterie board with a caption about resilience. At handoffs, she looked like someone who hadn't slept enough in a week and wasn't about to start. She didn't talk about Arthur, and I didn't ask because questions opened doors and I was busy closing some. When I dropped the kids off on a Thursday, our daughter forgot Binky. Lila texted an hour later, "Can you bring him?" I drove back and left the rabbit on the porch, rang the bell, and walked away because that is what a boundary is. The thing you hold when your heart has good ideas about detours. Our therapist. The couple's one sent a final note with the word termination in it and the phrase, "You both did the work." It felt like graduating from a place you never wanted to enroll. My individual therapist said, gently, that not every ending has a villain you can outsource your pain to. You did something most people say they want and don't, she said. You told the truth with actions, not speeches. Janelle told us the kids were doing okay. Our son made a chart about which house has the better cereal. Our daughter started calling my apartment the tree house because it's on the 3rd floor and the balcony has a view of leaves. On the first night in the tree house, she asked if she could stick glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. I said yes, and we did it together, and later I lay in the dark and looked up at constellations that only exist because a 7-year-old wanted them to, and I thought, I gave myself a chance, not her. Months later, I saw Arthur at a grocery store. He was in the wine aisle with a bottle of something that was trying too hard. He looked at me and opened his mouth and then closed it because he had nothing to say that would help either of us. I pushed my cart past him and bought cereal and apples and a mud cake mix my daughter had begged for. At the register, the cashier asked how my day was, and I said, honest, which made her grin. There's a cliche that says time heals all wounds. It doesn't. It salts some and sutures others and leaves a few as landmarks you can use to navigate. What healed was not time, it was the absence of lies. The house was calmer without the daily creative writing exercises. The calendar kept making sense. The kids learned that 2 homes can still be home. I learned I could set a rule and not punish anyone with it. I learned I could stop talking before the part where I make a speech that sounds great and doesn't change a thing. I don't tell this story to recruit anyone. I tell it because Section 90 saved me from 2 versions of myself I didn't want to meet, the man who stays and rots, and the man who performs rage and calls it masculinity. I don't know if Lila will ever be happy in the way I understood that word when we were 28 and had bad furniture and better jokes. I hope she is. I hope she learned that limits are not cages unless you choose to rattle them for applause. On my porch at night, I can hear the highway hum like a big animal. In the treehouse, the stars on the ceiling make their soft argument for wonder. If I tilt my head, I can see the calendar on the fridge with its neat handwriting, the lines that tell us where to be and when. People like to say, love is the thing that keeps a family together. Maybe. In my house, the thing that keeps us steady is something less cinematic, promises kept, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. The kind of truth that doesn't need a microphone. Kohania ne vitrimuit, indi e zibreknyo. My therapist would have laughed if she spoke my grandmother's language. Love doesn't survive NDAs with lies. What I gave in those 90 days wasn't a pardon. I gave myself a chance to see who I am when I stopped negotiating with what I already know. What do you think? Are strict 90-day terms fair after a betrayal, or are they just another way to delay the inevitable? Would you have done Section 90 or walked away in the parking lot? Tell me in the comments. And if this kind of story keeps you listening, tap like and subscribe. It makes more difference than you think.